dream. I was flying high, I was feeling fine. I won't be put in line, 'cause I'm ready to do my time.
Simply Financial with Christopher Calandra, Certified Financial Planner, is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to the Simply Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. This is episode number 45 of season number 3, but going to do things a little different this week and next. The upcoming interview with John Hyre is going to be a 2-part series, so we're going to do the first part now. It'll be episode 45. Then please listen in, and next week listen in again so that you could hear the entirety of this wide-ranging discussion with John. I think it's really great. I hope you think so too. So on today's show, I have with me John Hyre, who I've known for a number of years, although incredibly, we've never actually met in person. It's been purely a remote business relationship, but he is an attorney, an accountant. He's also authored several books, and he is a real estate investor. Very creative guy, super smart, very successful, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. John, thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here, especially with an intro like that.
I know. I think I did a heck of a job with that intro. I give myself kudos.
My wife always tells people, don't feed the lawyer's ego.
Yeah, that's probably good advice. So, John, what I had wanted to talk to you about today, and there's so many things I would like to talk to you about, but I've been doing a number of presentations as well as podcast appearances where I'm a guest on other people's show, and the topic has been my version of the 7 wealth building rules. I've been a financial planner now since 1992, so it's over 27 years, which is incredible, so I don't feel that old at 49. But I wanted to get your thoughts, because as an attorney and as a tax professional, and you've worked a lot with real estate investors and small business owners over the course of your career, I wanted to get your perspective on some of my thoughts in terms of the 7 wealth building rules. Is that all right?
Sure thing. Let's do it.
So number 1 is the importance of goal setting. So just to set the stage, I know this is a bit of a cliche, because if you read anything on efficiency, be a better you, self-motivation, any of that kind of stuff, they'll talk about goal setting. My thought with the goal setting is you should have goals. You should write them down. That's pretty standard. But the spin that I have on it is have goals that focus not just on the long term, but also small, short and midterm. So, for example, you meet somebody, say a real estate investor, and I had this conversation with a woman recently where she's never invested in real estate, wants to invest in real estate. What are your goals? Oh, I want to own 50 properties. That's a good goal, right? I wouldn't discourage that. You probably wouldn't discourage that. But I think if you don't couple that with, I'm going to buy my first one by the end of X, or I'm going to speak with my accountant and build my team to get ready. You need some short-term goals. Otherwise, that 50 could kind of hang out there, but I want to couple that with short and midterm goals. What do you think about that?
Let me change words on you a little bit. Being a lawyer, I like to play with them.
Yes,
the first thing I ask
a
client, what's your vision and why? So when someone says to me, I want 50 rentals, well, that's nice and that's arbitrary, and I can help you get there, but why? And some of them, it's funny, well, that's none of your business. Well, it is and it isn't. You're the client, and you can determine what's my business. The reason I think it's my business is my job is as an attorney, an accountant, and a counselor, all right? That's what we call lawyers, counsel, if they're really good,
right?
Is to help you decide what do you want, and then will the 50 rentals actually help you get what you want? For example, are you better off with 50 leverage rentals or 10 free and clear? You might put out the same cash flow. 10's a lot easier to manage, and nobody with free and clear rentals ever went broke.
That's a very good point.
It just depends. And then we get to the intermediate goals. So I usually drag the client into the bigger picture So what are you going to do with that? How much are they going to make? What are you going to do with that money? Why does it matter to you? Where as Americans, we often assume more is better. Not always. Sometimes the price is too high.
That is a great point, and I joked about my age a little bit, and now having 27 years of experience. That is certainly something that I have learned as I've matured. And I was with actually an attorney recently. A friend and a client, and it was kind of an informal conversation. Actually, it was over drinks at a bar at happy hour, to be candid. And he said, more is always better. I want more. If I had X, I would want X plus, and if I had X plus, I would want X plus plus. But he's much younger, and I probably would have sounded and talked like him, but at 49, being smarter and more isn't better. And your example of debt, which we're going to talk about because that's number 6 in my 7 wealth building rules, is really good. Do you find that a lot of people have a grand, audacious goal, but then fail to have shorter term goals that would need to be accomplished on the way to the bigger, grander, longer term goal?
I think we see some of that. Usually I see more of the reverse. They have the short-term goal and they didn't think about the long-term picture, but we have seen the reverse. Definitely the people who write it down, plan it out, and really at some point make the goal, what am I doing today? What am I doing this week? What leads to the goal for the month? Does that contribute to the annual goal? So an organized, granular breakdown, especially for, entrepreneurs tend to be ADD and just focus on the urgency, and those goals help keep them on what's important as opposed to what's urgent.
Yes, very well said. Good. So we're in agreement about goal setting, and I love your addition to what I've been talking about, that you need to have a powerful why to make sure that the goal is consistent with your why. And as an attorney, as an accountant, as a counselor, as a financial planner working with clients, we're in a position we can help them not just with their goal setting, but the why, to make sure it all fits together appropriately, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the alcohol helps. In vino veritas, you get some interesting discussions and sometimes TMI in that process.
This is true as well. So then number 2 is to be prepared. I don't believe most people most of the time are going to build wealth on accident. They're not going to trip over it. So you need to be prepared. And sticking with the real estate theme, and this applies in other places as well, I'm a real estate investor. That's actually how you and I had originally connected, over 10 years ago, is using this individual that I mentioned, that she wants to buy 50 properties. You have to be prepared to do that. You have to do your homework. You have to become educated. You have to be trained. These are areas, building wealth, whether it's real estate, starting your own business, investing, where if you go into it unprepared, you're likely to get your butt handed to you, and you're greatly increasing the chances that you make mistakes that cost you money. So can you share with me some of your thoughts about preparation as you try and build wealth?
Yeah, you got to do your homework. You have to know yourself, because I've seen every technique out there work, and I've seen every technique out there fail, with the variable being how good a fit was that technique for a person. So part of it's know yourself, and they've got some of those interesting tests nowadays, the most basic one being the DISC, that make you kind of look in the mirror. Then you start getting into what fits me, what works, what approach should I take, and getting into the research. And that can be like anything else, underdone or overdone. I can always tell when I have an engineer client without meeting them when I look at their books and records. I've never once in 25 years of doing this thought that somebody was an engineer or a software person. I lumped them together and been wrong, because you can tell. But what do they tend to do? Prepare too much, sharpen their pencil, and never go. And then you've got, of course, the opposite, the cowboy clients who are the fire-ready aim sorts, and periodically that does not work out well. So it's about reading the client do they tend to over-prepare in the fashion of an engineer and never get started? Or might look more like normal people, civilians, let's call them. Maybe they didn't do the homework they needed to do and set up the structure they needed to make things happen. They're just kind of winging it.
Yes. And in today's day and age, winging it, where you have fierce competition in most markets, unserious attempts like that where you're not prepared, you're likely to get knocked around quite a bit. You could get knocked around even if you do your preparation, but if you're unserious about it, you're likely to be at the mercy of those that are prepared. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, you're Hitler. Right? You always have to bring up Hitler. It's not even politics we're talking about just yet, but you always have to bring up Hitler. I was just reading a book that I reread every few years about the Second World War, and he thought his intuition was the end-all, be-all, and he just had that gut sense. Well, he had the best army in the world. How did that work out when they were led by his intuition?
Did not work out well.
It's not enough.
For my listeners, I'm an avid reader. I'm curious too. What is the book you reread every couple of years that you're referring to?
It's called The German Army, 1939 to 1945, a couple inches thick. I bought it as a teenager, and I think that one, I have a list of books that I reread. I think that one's every 10 years that I reread that. It was just a really good analysis, in depth, of the German Army and why they succeeded. It had more to do with the weakness of their enemies because they had their own issues. I love history, so I really get into those things. And
all right, good. And then I'm going to flip my rules. The next thing is that you need a team. I think this is one of the rules that I have that it is often talked about more than maybe some of the other things that I reference, but you need a team. Building wealth, especially for entrepreneurs, small business owners, you need a team. It's not a one-person sport. It's a team game. You're often part of people's teams. I am. Real estate agents are. I mean, there's a host of people, and it ties into the preparation because you brought up the engineer that could be over-prepared and have paralysis by analysis. So you come to a blend, but you can't be prepared for everything. You can't be an expert in everything, so you're going to need some help. Can you talk about the importance of building a team when you're trying to be smart with money, win with money, and build wealth?
Most of us are very, very good at a few things and mediocre or awful at everything else. And that's the purpose of the team, is to fill in the spots where you're mediocre or awful, or just your mortal limits, your inability to cram more than 24 hours into a day come to the fore. So, I mean, the team members, certainly, I mean, most of my clients are real estate investors. We also have a lot of just flat-out normal business clients. In fact, that section is growing because of some of the work we've done for investors gets around. They're good at running the business. Everything else needs to be delegated. I'm amazed at some of these control freaks that it just limits them, that they can't delegate. So, of course, we're going to see, I mean, lawyers anymore are like doctors, right? It's not just my lawyer. If you have one general lawyer, that's a hopelessly obsolete concept given the complexity of the law. Heck, I'm a tax lawyer, and I don't even know all the tax code. I tend to focus on a fairly small portion of the code. It's just that complex. So it's like a surgery team, right? If you don't have a brain surgeon for brain surgery, you got a heart surgeon instead, you're going to die. That's just what's going to happen. We see the financial advisors, the people who can give, again, kind of figure out what are your goals, where are you going, what are you trying to do, what fits you, what's your risk tolerance, and most of all, do those people have connections into investments that one would not be able to find or spot on their own? They see things that the rest of us don't. The accountants, which I also serve in that capacity, really to tell you the story. I mean, your books are the story of your business. That's why they call them the books. And you need someone to be able to look ahead. Where are we going with it? What is the true status? I've seen so many disasters with some pretty large outfits with inferior type bookkeeping, just to name a few. But, I mean, we could go on and on. The team is vast given the complexity of today's world.
Beautiful. And then